Welcome back to the Goat Rodeo podcast. I am your regular co-host, Garrett Smith, joined by my fellows, Simon Kuhn and Dave Cottle, my regular co-hosts. Per the comment last week, we are getting back on the rotating guest host bandwagon. And next week, we're going to be joined by my friend, fellow entrepreneur, and fellow Marine. Sorry, Dave, you're going to be outnumbered. Alex Martin, CEO and founder at a great company called Clear Speed, doing incredible good stuff and delivering massive value to multiple industries, not least of which is defense. So looking forward to having that conversation with him. I felt self-conscious coming into this session today because there's a chance that I'm wearing the same shirt I was wearing last week. Do you guys think about that when we record? Like, am I wearing the same thing?
I always think about what t-shirts I'm wearing because I'm obsessed with t-shirts.
I can tell. That's a.
I don't think about it at all. I guarantee you, I've worn this shirt on.
Yeah, you let the chest hair fly out the top, and you're
it's
good
true.
to go.
It's true.
Right?
Gorgeous lock.
That's the star of the show.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you, Dave. You're a.
I do want to point out
service.
I do want to point out, Matt from Marines here, that he's already outnumbered. It's 2-1 every single time.
That's a good point you're making, Simon. Thank you. Thank you. Even further outnumbered next week, 3-1. The ratio is growing. I don't feel bad about it. Say what you will, Dave, but I think you've met Alex. He's a great guy. He's going to be a great conversation partner. We can make fun of him because he's got his own things, as I do, as we all do, but he's a great guy.
You've been I don't mind being outnumbered on the podcast. I've been sneaking in Army folks into reveal though.
That's true.
Through those for a while now. So
that's true. That's true. And good on you for that, because I mean that's the biggest market, right? The Marines don't know how to buy our stuff. We need people who can speak Army. It's that's the truth of it. Okay, let's get into a bit of content here. It's not that there's nothing going on in the world. It's just that, coming off of the hangover from Israel and the U.S. teaming up with each other on, bombing Iran and unprecedented, or at least historic, B-2 giant bombs, all the stuff. Like it feels like not a lot is going on in the foreign affairs kind of international environment. So we're going to maybe skip that topic of the agenda this week and maybe just do a solid head nod toward the fact that it appears there are ceasefire or peace negotiations or something going on in the Middle East, and we are hopeful about peace coming to the stage, notwithstanding the fact that, as Simon pointed out earlier, Israel did conduct some airstrikes on some targets in Syria. So, stuff is still going on. It's just kind of maybe low simmer at this point. Did you want to jump in on that, Simon? You might have had some opinion.
I can't keep up. I mean, to the point, I literally saw Israel airstrikes in Syria, and I was just like, wait, for who? Who are we fighting now? What? I thought the new Syria president was our guy. Clearly, I'm not as up to date as I thought I was. I thought we.
When you say we, are you affiliating strongly with Israel? I don't understand the we.
Well, I'm an American, and we send no small amount of money to Israel, so we're on a team. Whether we want to, regardless of how the left or the right thinks about it, we're on a team here.
Got it.
So in my mind, anyone that is a friend of America, which I think we're trending towards pretty aggressively with Syria, right? This new regime seems to be certainly at the table with the American geopolitical machine.
Apparently we do have a full-blown topic to discuss. Keep going, son.
I mean, yeah, dude, but every day is another one of these.
Yeah,
tomorrow something else will happen and I will forget this thing entirely. I'm like, God, I can't keep up.
We did talk about this. I think is al-Shara, I believe is President al-Shara in Syria, recently installed after he led a successful coup, revolution, insurgency.
But super heavily engaged with the West. I mean, more so than I think any other new leader in that region. So I was very surprised to find that there wasn't a diplomatic opportunity there with how friendly that regime seems to be with Western folks.
Do you want to hear my tinfoil hat?
Yeah, let's hear it. What's the take?
Al-Shara was for a long time held in a detention facility in Iraq.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He's former Al-Qaeda. That's that is true. I think it's factual. It's referenceable. All right, hear my conspiracy there.
Yeah.
this is a long, slow burn American covert action program where we recruited him in the cells at the detention facility, and we, can you imagine? Can you get into that headspace? Like Western governments have like funded, and I don't want to go too hard in the paint here in conspiracy corner.
As
but,
as an anti-conspiracy guy, I think that the simplest answer is the easiest one, which is we didn't have to recruit him 10 years ago to give him a good deal right now, and for him to go, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Oh no. I meant some kind of like covert action thing came about and like supported him as the next insurgent leader takeover.
Oh, the next. Yeah, I certainly think I get the impression without any insider knowledge that, yeah, there's some level of like U.S. blessing to his rise to power, and probably support as well. But I bet you it was nothing more complicated than like, hey, let's stop this. Who wants to be the guy?
I think I'm encouraged by trying something kind of new with the Trump administration, basically saying, we're going to lift all the sanctions. Come to the table, be a better partner.
You got to have carrots.
Get on a peace trajectory.
Come on, right? You're not going to beat anyone into submission of be my friend. If you don't be my friend, I'm going to keep beating you up. Like, that's never going to work.
It's also like if you want some stability there, and I'm not saying that it's stable, it's not, but if you want some stability there and you're the U.S., wouldn't it be kind of nice if you basically gave the new Syrian regime a win? Like, look what we did. We got all the sanctions lifted. We can get back on our feet. I mean,
that's exactly my point. That's my surprise, is like, I saw it as that way. I was like, okay, yeah, clearly we are extending an olive branch to like build some stability in the region. So I was surprised to see Israel specifically attack Syria rather than like have some sort of U.S. facilitated dialogue to resolve whatever the problem is.
Yeah, well, hopefully we keep doing better things in that region.
Sure.
Whether it's the we or the other we.
I'm sure we'll have something else to talk about them next week.
I mean, there's
a whole new
some,
thing.
I think there's some looming deadlines around like Hamas-Israel ceasefire, hostage negotiation stuff. So I mean, we'll see. I'm hopeful there's good stuff on the horizon. It's been horrific for the last 2 years. Okay, pivoting, deal book stuff. I think the big item of note in the venture deal book for the defense tech space is that Firestorm Labs, my friend Dan Maggie over there, CEO, just announced, I think today, a $47 million Series A, which Series A's keep getting bigger and bigger, especially in the defense tech space, led by NEA, and we know those guys, the Lockheed Martin Ventures folks, who I don't know, the Decisive Point guys, who I do know, Tommy Hendricks and that team, Mina Falta, Mina over at Washington Harbor Partners. Obviously, we know the Booz Allen Ventures guys. Those guys, we've been in the trenches with them for a bit. And Justin Krause is cited in the article that I'm looking at right now from JP Morgan. They've been spinning up a more focused defense technology practice. I think this is pretty interesting, though, because while yet again, this is a drone industry investment, which seems to be getting all the heat and froth, this is a different take on it. So this is all about pushing fabrication, manufacturing capability into the edge environment, so that you're not dealing with like complex, remote, and fragmented supply chains that eventually need to get to the front or the area of intended, military force projection. This gives commanders in the so-called front the ability to fabricate and produce, maybe even mass produce, capability right there at the edge. They have a few different platforms. They're prolific in kind of the social media sphere. Amazing videos. We've been in demo environments with them. We've seen their stuff firsthand. I have a pretty high regard for them, despite the fact that they're a bunch of surfer Southern California long-haired hippies. But I do appreciate what they're doing, and I love that they're taking a new kind of perspective on the necessity to push things to the edge. And that's near and dear to our hearts at Reveal. We care a lot about this edge environment, pushing capability there that is resilient to supply chain disruption, comms disruption, GPS and navigation disruption, all that stuff. Dave, you've been in environments with these guys. You know them a bit. Do you want to comment maybe on the tech?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from what we've seen, both in their demonstrations, their briefings, and engagements with Firestorm, we really like them. I like the idea. And I also think it's good timing from a policy perspective in the way that we see the Department of Defense and our allies headed, to the Ukrainian model, distributed UAS production footprint. I mean, they make Group 1 to 3 UAS systems, and they'll sell them to customers, but their strategy here is, decentralized rapid manufacturing. As you said, it's affordable mass at the point of need, with near zero logistics tail. And they lean heavily on rapid iteration, like rapid field iteration. So if you get the production facility right next to you, part of their value proposition is, as the conditions on the battlefield change, we'll go back to the XL. I think they call them XL production factory, which may be an Icon X box or something bigger. And we will redesign and re-implement. And if we can fix the problem with software, we'll do that by redesigning the software architecture or software stack. And if we can't, then we'll change the hardware and print a new solution.
Do you have any idea, Dave, if like they've had to clear wickets in the compliance world that other companies wouldn't have to if they're doing kind of rapid iteration at the edge? In other words, if you're changing things, especially in the software environment, but definitely in the hardware environment, the U.S. military has been incredibly inflexible in terms of granting interim authorities to test or authorities to operate, ATO or whatever, right? So like, do you happen to know if, a modular, manipulatable, forward deployed edge fab capability ends up running into compliance roadblocks that others wouldn't?
I don't know. I can't speak to it because I haven't had that conversation with Firestorm or no, but I can assume that it's been a real challenge.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We should get Dan on to talk about that. Actually, we should bring him on.
And although I assume that, where I know that part of their value proposition, their described value prop is that they could do that rapid iteration on the edge. I don't know that I've actually seen it in the test and evaluation events, like done in a meaningful way, probably because they're prohibited by airworthiness or authority to operate or ATT or what have you.
Sure. Yeah.
I want to say real quick that I think that conceptually, this philosophical approach to distributed manufacturing has got to factor in heavily across dozens of industries if we're going to expect DoD to be competitive in some of these combat theaters. And I think, the Pacific is an obvious use case where the longer your supply chain gets, the more vulnerable it gets, and it's just going to be nearly impossible to move stuff. Basically everything that goes there moves to the Straits of Malacca, right? Like that's 2/3 of the world's commerce. So your ability to move materials, you're going to need to be printing, building, doing everything as close to the edge of those island chains as humanly possible, whether it's concrete or food or drones. So I love this from like a philosophical perspective, just because there has to be more of that. We're probably never going to hit a place as a country where we build these Chinese style mega factories that produce so much that we don't have to think about it. Like that age of industrial manufacturing for our service-based economy is over. But I do think we can realize a lot of these technological advantages to produce at mass at the right place.
Yeah.
Where it seems like, we have a much larger mass than we actually do.
We talked last week, maybe a couple of weeks ago, a couple of pods ago, we talked about battlefield or frontline battlefield commanders in Ukraine basically building their own supply chains for one-way attack drones and that sort of thing in the Ukraine-Russia context. Just as a sidebar, I think first that underscores the necessity for the kind of thing you're talking about, Simon, the necessity for this edge-based fabrication capability where you de-risk a supply chain by bringing it to the time and place of need rather than stockpiling things, right? So we had that conversation a week or two ago. And then the sidebar component of this is that Reveal is hosting a couple of Ukrainian drone component entrepreneurs in Bozeman. So if you're in and around the Bozeman area and want information about attending kind of a closed door event, we're going to be doing that next Monday evening, the 21st, I believe is the date. And it's going to be a really interesting conversation. I intend to dig into this set of content very specifically with them, and it's going to be cool to hear that firsthand.
I think when you think about the Pacific, though, unlike the Ukraine theater, is where would you put a factory? like even if we have, I think, an even more challenging problem set there, where it's like, hey, There is
I mean,
no overland industrial pipeline to build your own factory on an
right.
island.
I mean, isn't that the cool thing about a Firestorm XL capability? You drop it onto the deck of a ship, or you put it in the belly of an amphibious vessel, or you drop it on some remote island chain. You could airlift it in with a CH-53, a helicopter, right? Like heavy lift helicopter just drops it in. You have that fabrication manufacturing capability. You can sustain operations there for some period of time, but you're not building a permanent, enduring footprint anywhere. And it's modular and you can move it around. I think it's great.
Super interesting.
It's pretty cool. Well done, Dan.
And I don't think they're proposing that you bring 1,000 Pelican cases with UAS systems with you. You might bring a handful and some spares or spare parts, but I think that you're intending on using all the logistics or to bring added 3D printing, additive manufacturing capability and additive manufacturing, ink, as well as
spools of filament. Spools of filament and whatever else.
Spools of filament.
I think your next big question, though, is can you get enough of that out there to unlock the Joes? Because like the real beauty of additive manufacturing, particularly at the edge, is letting the end user tweak it. Right? Can you get to that point where units are like, oh, I found this thing that works better, and I can share it with the other units, and we can, like, instead of having this true top-down thing, you're talking about battlefield commanders pushing out innovation at like the speed of combat. I think would be really interesting.
I think that's part of their plan, and I've been telling you for a while now that I think that UAS design, employment, weaponeering for missions will be a soldier level 10 task. It will be it will be part of basic training. The same way we familiarize soldiers with their rifle, we will familiarize soldiers with how this works, and we will step back and be impressed when an infantry squad has designed the latest and greatest iteration and employed it effectively, and then share what they know with everybody else.
So, I mean, this is only one of many problems facing the still evolving drone industry and just a set of policies around their use in the military. I think we saw some recent memorandum type activity, kind of a sexy high production value video of Defense Secretary Hegseth on the lawn of the Pentagon with a bunch of drone operators doing stuff. And I think, not to pivot too hard into the next topic, but, it's interesting that the emerging policies around commercial dual use software software acquisition pathways, COTS, more flexible, all that stuff. I think Secretary Hegseth and his team continue to charge down this lane of innovation and unlocking the potential of the drone industry. Did you guys watch that video? You guys know what
I did, and I'm glad you brought it up, because if you hadn't, I was gonna, if I can, break it down a little bit, because we've known that something like this was coming, but it was actually more impactful and there was more meat on it than I expected. What this memo says, and it's not publicly available, but it's leaked and reported on quite a bit at this point.
The Trump administration leaks.
I think we can trust quite a bit of the reporting around this at this point. There's some meaty stuff in there. First off, we've talked about it in previous pods as we read the tea leaves and thought it was coming, but the memo grants authority down to frontline commanders, down to O-6s, to do some real things regarding UAS systems, like the authority to authorize use of hardware and software, and the authority to procure hardware and software for UAS problems, and even accept risk on foreign-made components and risk to the supply chain to buy those. It also encourages private capital to help solve this like drone manufacturing scalability problem, such as, for example, suggests like pre-purchase agreements, right? The United States government pays up front so you can scale out your manufacturing, which is new. It directs establishment of UAS training centers. So places that you can actually, fly without having all, this stack of paperwork crossed and dotted across the U.S. Demands that we integrate the UAS capabilities into every training exercise. Specifically calls out force-on-force training exercises. I mean, JRTC and TC, where our units are actually trained and validated to go to war, which is they're not featured on the Blue Force side in a meaningful way yet, because there's too much policy around what they can and can't fly. So it rescinds a lot of that policy. And get this, it says that DIU is no longer going to be responsible for the blue list. Like, great job getting it established, DIU, but that is now going to DCMA to launch a live.
Quick call out. Reveal is an OG blue list software value add capability since whenever that list came about. I mean, like, we're OG. I'm not saying it's done anything for us, honestly. I'm just saying we're on it.
So that's why they're saying good job with the list DIU. However, because companies like Reveal are having to explain to other parts of the United States military that their validation from this DIU blue list means that they're procurable. That's not really your job, DIU. The Defense Contracts Management Agency will take care of that for you. They'll have this live centralized digital platform where anybody across the United States DoD can contract and procure things off of that list. So they're really adding a lot of fuel and authority to the DUA DIU, originally DIU blue list.
So I want to add some color to that. First, there's some really interesting things in the memo around items that are on the blue list, specifically UAS systems, right? Like, that's the term used specifically in the memo is systems, because it includes hardware and software. It's not just drone platforms. And it's, it states that anything on the blue list is not going to be considered to have an authority to operate. Strictly speaking, things on the blue list already had that. It just wasn't very well communicated / understood by the departments. And I worry about that same challenge with this memo. It's awesome to see the SecDef like kicking the door open, but everybody's got to walk through it. It can't just be a signal, right? There's got to be follow through. So I am most excited about the DCMA because, it points out specifically, DCMA will be the new entity and it will be resourced to do so. DCMA has 11,000 employees. DIU has 300. It's like a massive difference in like your ability to actually follow up and tell people you need to be buying these things and to put new people on the list and do some like useful due diligence.
How many did you just say? 11,000?
11,000.
Is that 11,000 more like desks that a single piece of paper needs to clear? You know what I mean? In other words, I agree that this seems like the right kind of forward progress and reducing barriers and empowering maybe a more well endowed entity to like go out and execute. And I'm hopeful that that's the case. Is this also an example? And I feel like I bring this up every week with every policy discussion, but like, is this another example of creating yet another bureaucratic hurdle that people are going to have to clear in order to get something done?
You could not possibly make a taller bureaucratic hurdle than the current DIU process to get on the blue list. That cannot physically. It is not, and they've said it many times. It has become a gatekeeper by compliance. It is not a useful pathway, and it's not DIU's fault. They were assigned this by the NDAA, and they were given no employees and no resources to execute. So even if DCMA does a bad job, it will be better because it functions. There's just nowhere to go right now.
But DCMA were the people that can say no, right? Like, we've assigned this responsibility to the organization responsible for contract compliance, supplier vetting, and acquisitions logistics, right? So by doing so, like, the expectation is that barrier is reduced.
I feel like you guys using that term "we" inappropriately. We are not Israel. We are not Syria. We are not DCMA.
We are part of the social contract. We are Americans. Get on the team, Garrett.
Wow.
This is, we win or we lose together. There will be no like, well, they did kind of good, but we lost the war. Like, but we're all.
My point.
Go ahead, Dave. Go ahead.
My point is, if I'm talking to a PM and going, no, you can buy it's blue list approved. They might go like from DIU, they're like, oh, I don't know how my boss is going to feel about that. But if I like it's DCMA approved, they're like, oh gosh, okay, those are the people that would have. Those are the people that would have given me flack for buying this, right?
And I want to be clear. It's 11,000 employees. It sounds like a huge amount. They manage 350,000 contracts. We could probably reduce that workload as well, and then reduce the number of employees. But for the current workload, 11,000 employees doesn't seem that particularly crazy.
They manage, or they have like a like an ability to influence, impact, comment, kill, adjust contracts?
I don't have the answer to like their
So-
depth of control, but it's just an organization of scale that's been around for 40 plus odd years.
And this is DoD level, so they're like managing or have some oversight on all service contracts.
Yes.
Like the 50,000 plus Navy contracts, as an example, is one of those. Got it. Okay. Okay. Cool. Well, how does this make life better for us?
I'm not sure it does yet. I think it has the potential to make life a lot better for us. One of the things Dave and I have gone round and round on this is, all right, so you kick the door open, but we're going to have to wait for, some level of the culture to also walk through the door. So that's like the acquisition mechanisms of the services have to agree with this and start, pushing out capabilities under the assumption that they have ATOs, right? Like they need to just absorb that risk and get after it. Then these battlefield commanders have to be, it's one thing for the SecDef to say, hey, every O-6, you're cleared hot. It's a different thing for those O-6s to go to their, their higher headquarters and be like, hey, SecDef said I can do this, so I bought a bunch of drones. Like that is not exactly how the chain of command works, even if you have some top cover. So you're probably going to need to see some Mavericks stepping out and moving aggressively. You'll definitely see some of the services are going to do really well, and some of them are going to, be scared. I'm hopeful, candidly, that the Army will continue in the same vein as their modernization priorities and the transformation and contact initiative. All that stuff will lead to early adoption there. But where's the money coming from? Like a ton of cool authorities, but are you going to give these O-6s special pots of money to buy their own equipment? Or they're going to have to spend their O&M and training dollars to buy drones?
Or could they eventually be managing their own compliance? Okay, no, I heard you. Yeah, no, okay, go ahead.
I think
It seems, yeah, I mean, it could happen. Like you could, I also worry that you might end up on like a true negative side that could come out of all of this is like a Franken-force, where the 101st is using X type of drone, and then the 82nd uses a different type of drone.
Good. They have.
I was going to say
different geographic.
Well, not just that, but like if you A/B test something and the 101st starts like kicking ass vis-a-vis the 82nd, and they're, then you cross-pollinate the learnings from one into the other, and you end up with something better, right? I mean, that's like it's almost like marketplace competition as applied to defense capability.
What if you're not kicking ass? What if you're just friends with that 1-star or that colonel?
That can be true right now in the current system. You could be very good friends with the right congressman and the right PEO, and you can get something done.
Yeah, the 101st.
Reference the $1 billion contract, Simon, that we were talking about offline for like the big, the Microsoft Palantir kind of that set. You think there isn't some amount of like relationship, facilitating those contracts?
Absolutely.
The 101st doesn't need to worry about how it's going to, like, whether or not it's jumpable. But the 82nd does, right? And the 10th Mountain is going to be really concerned about what operates in cold weather.
Altitude.
The best of how
I'm going to bring out an old Simon Chestnut hot take. I can't wait for the 82nd to prioritize jumpable drones just to never jump into combat again. That's going to be
we're not going to debate static line parachuting live. We're not going to debate static line parachuting as a method of
transition. It'll be on the Patreon for anybody who wants to see me and Dave talk for 4 hours about.
We have a Patreon.
Garrett, you said manage their own compliance. The reporting on this, and I still want to read the actual memo. The reporting on this suggests that that's the intent. Is they're saying O-6s from across the force, your entire careers, all we have taught you to do is identify, assess, and mitigate risks. We see this as just another risk that you need to identify, assess, and mitigate, including the compliance portion of this. Yeah. If you need for your mission something with foreign parts, knock yourself out. So you can buy it. If DCMA has it on the list, you can just buy it completely off the shelf. However, if you are taking responsibility for the outcomes, negative and positive, you can buy whatever you want.
I mean, that's kind of what I think as well. And when I said compliance, I was thinking, there's a whole range of compliance regimes that, acquisitions folks need to contend with. But when it comes to like drone and drone operations, I'm thinking like airspace, right? Like airworthiness, or a whole range of items there. And like, if you're willing to adopt the risk of complex airspace management, Marine Corps, in the Marine Corps, the Marine Air Ground Task Force, like, somebody's managing a complex set of stacked assets in the airspace, above ground, and potentially even surface or subsurface in the maritime environment. And somebody is actively managing that whole thing, a JTAC or an air officer or somebody, right? Like,
Right.
why not also allow that person to have the buck stops here, bottom line verdict on airworthiness or whatever?
Yes. Do I have the right staff? Do I have the right set of expertise to manage and mitigate this risk? I don't see it as anything else different. I don't see it as different than anything else we do in the United States military. Right?
Sure.
Hey, I've got a guy that knows what he's talking about and has experience and has been to through the training pipeline. And he says that this thing is unlikely to fall out of the sky. And if it does, these are the potential impacts to my soldiers. Thus, I'll take some mitigation. Like, I'll take some measures and mitigate and clear the airspace or clear the ground beneath it or whatever.
I think you mentioned, I think it was last week, and I forget which of you said this. I think, Dave, it was you. It was that this kind of trend in the direction away from zero risk tolerance and toward risk tolerance as like a thing we need to allow adult commanders endowed with authority and lethal capability and everything else to also adopt supply chain risk or equipment fail risk or whatever else. Like, why not do that? And that's in contrast to maybe the legacy way of centralizing technology development and acquisition, all in an effort to reduce risk to zero, which denies capability getting out into the theater.
Absolutely.
I actually think that the structure that they're looking at, that we're driving towards right now, makes a lot of sense as far as using a centralized hub to pull some risk out, but push the decisions further down. I.e., I think there is a lot of value in having a centralized agency that is reviewing very large quantities of different platforms and giving them a stamp of approval, so that his commander is not starting from zero when he's thinking about what drone does my unit need.
Isn't that
necessarily?
Isn't that the whole purpose or intent behind the blue list and maybe this move to DCMA? There is some sort of central body who identifies the parameters within which a responsible officer or whomever can go and do things, right?
So funny enough, that's not how they thought of it when they built it, and everyone looked at it and said, of course that's what it is. You don't realize it, but that's what it, and that's why this became such a logjam, because DIU from the beginning was like, hey, we're not making a list of stuff you have to buy from. And every single person in the government goes, oh, that's cool. I'm going to use it as a list of stuff to buy from, and I will not buy anything else because of risk, right? Because that is exactly what they're concerned with, the risk.
So I will say, Garrett, Garrett's saying, how does this impact us? Where we have had O-6s send us the list of, hey, we like this, set of capabilities that you're involved with this UAS OEM, and I want to buy it. Here is specifically the barriers for me doing that, and I can't. We're sorry. And I think that, Garrett called them Mavericks. I think the first three of those Mavericks will say, okay, well, now with this memo or new policy guidance, I'm going to go back to all those people that told me no, and I'm going to try again. And I think that many of them are likely to be successful. But you said, Simon, you made a great point, which is what absent in the reporting of this memo, at least if not in the memo itself, is where do they get the money?
Yeah, there's no money yet.
So for right now, it's probably those people that have this prioritized in their shopping list or in their requirements set, finding the money from somewhere else or repurpose it or reprioritizing it. But on the whole, and the funding's a whole other part of this, risk tolerance, right? Because you get, hey, brigade commander, you get 5,000 soldiers and you're responsible for life or death and their whole quality of life and for winning or losing America's battles. However, we can't trust you with any money, any real funding, because you might do something that's illegal, immoral, or unethical with it, which I have always hated as the answer.
I mean, you might do something immoral, unethical with that, lethal firearm you handed to that 17-year-old enlistee, right?
Absolutely.
I can promise you from my personal experience in the Marine Corps, if there's a moral or unethical thing to do, we're going to do it. So I share their concerns, but let's roll the dice. Let's see what happens.
But we can't make our policies around lack of trust, faith, and confidence in military officers.
I agree. I actually think that your biggest hang up is going to be the bureaucratic ownership of resources. I think there's going to be a lot of folks that want to see resources pushed to these frontline entities to make these decisions, but the bureaucracies themselves are built to protect their pots of money. So I will be real fascinated to see where the money comes from. O&M is already the most significant part. Operations and maintenance dollars is the most significant part of the DoD budget, right? Like this is a black hole for money, essentially. It costs a lot to feed and clothe and send people out into the world on behalf of the U.S. government. So if you stick more O&M dollars there and are like, yeah, use it to buy drones, they're going to spend it on other stuff. They're going to spend it on other stuff. So you're going to need to make a new pot of money, I think, and it's going to have to come from somewhere. And the logical way is probably to reduce some of that big service level acquisition pot of money and redistribute it down to the frontline commanders, like a certain socialist mayor candidate. We just got to redistribute the wealth.
He only won the primary. Only won the primary.
I said candidate.
I just want to make sure.
I did play Settlers of Catan last night, and every time I took someone's stuff, I referred to it as Mondani-ing them.
So to clarify, like part of this memo says you need to start treating these as consumables. You need to start treating them as ammunition, right? And we know, like, even without, like, let's forget Chinese chips. We know that the target price point for the consumable version of these things is around $5,000 or less, and it'll get better quickly. It'll probably get better quickly. So you could modernize every O-6's formation in the entire United States military with probably about $250,000.
Would you believe, though, that we have big arguments about how bullets get resourced every single year?
Oh, absolutely. But my point is, keep leaning into it. If you give them the option to, like, no O-6 in the entire United States military has been able to, since George Washington, and we were like, hey, go to Canada, like, here's your budget, write us a letter once a month, let us know how it's going. Since those days, no commander has been able to make the decision of, do I want to repave my parking lot, or do I want to buy this type of ammunition, or do I want to not receive as much of one type of ammunition more of the next year? Do I really care if I refresh the office furniture? That is the sort of authority around money and how it's spent inside their formations that I would be advocating for. To your point about, like, people are expensive, I hate saying this out loud. It's really unpopular among my peers and, former Army buddies and current part-time service and that, to say, I don't really want 5,000 infantrymen if I can have 3,000 or 2,000 infantrymen and an army of expendable robotic systems, because I have fewer people in harm's way, and I have much less of a burden of paying, feeding, housing, etc.
Especially if you're fabricating them, right there.
Right.
Yeah. Guys, we've got a few minutes left to cover maybe a last topic. Simon, we haven't talked yet today about the goings on around Congress, Capitol Hill. Obviously, stuff is happening. Can you maybe give us a status update?
Yeah, we're into that wonky part of the year for congressional stuff. So, the industry is done coming to the Hill and making their pitches for things they'd like to see in the bills, and now we watch the bill's actual text come out and the members vote. So the House NDAA has been approved in committee. It was, I think, a 55-2 vote, so overwhelming support within the House Armed Services Committee for the bill that was written, which includes the SPEED Act, as far as I understand it, its entirety. I haven't read the whole bill. This is a major set of acquisition reforms, and we're going to see that NDAA voted on the floor this month. Similarly, in the Senate side, we actually just had the text for the Senate NDAA come out today. So we'll see a committee vote, I think, next week. And then I imagine they will go to the floor this month as well. So we'll probably go into the long August recess with both defense policy bills done in the House and Senate, and we'll see a conference bill when we come back from that. Probes, unfortunately, is probably going to be a lot more of a anybody's ball game sort of scenario. I'm still not sure how the House and Senate come together to figure out what it looks like. We're already seeing a NASA budget that completely contradicts the president's budget, and I think you're going to see a lot more discrepancies across all these different agencies top lines. So it's going to be a rough year for funding.
Some of that's normal, though, right? There's never, like, total alignment or agreement. Is it more egregious this year? And does that, like, trickle down to, like, I don't know, viability of the bill, or, like, the probability passes, or the effect that it would have on us, as an example?
It is much more egregious. So we have an admin, obviously, who's done a lot of cutting through the DOGE process. They've laid off a lot of employees, which has gone all the way to the Supreme Court, right, to even decide whether or not the president has the authority to execute the kind of layoffs that we saw the first 3 months this year, which the Supreme Court upheld. So things like USAID and NASA, these agencies that have been targeted for really large cuts by the admin, if Congress disagrees and they can't find some middle ground, I think you're going to have a huge problem. Unlike pretty much everything else, you need 10 Democrat senators to come and play ball. And that's a really high bar to cross. And additionally, on the House side, you have a right wing of the Republican Party that does not want to see anything done to restore funding to the things the president cut. They are very in line with the president's agenda of cutting these domestic agencies. So you've got like two really far apart positions between the Democrats and the right wing of the Republican Party, which I think is going to be really tough to find compromise. And like I said, it's anybody's ball game. I think anyone's guess is as good as mine as far as how appropriations is going to play out, but I don't think we're going to see it until we come back from August.
So let's say, let me put two straw men out there for you to react to, Simon. Maybe
Sure.
just to like get some practical, what should I do if this or that? Assuming there are some folks in the audience who are, wondering how to behave at this phase in the cycle. So the first is, all right, we worked with Congress and our customers in the department. There's maybe an appropriation request that's in there that's likely to stay in the bill or whatever else. We think that, we've done that work. What do they need? What does somebody like that? What does a company like that or an entity like that or organization, whatever, what do they need to be doing right now? What should they be paying attention to? What is it, a follow through game? Like, what is that? What does it look like?
So yeah, if there's money in either of the House or the Senate appropriations bills that you think is going to be materially beneficial to your company, right? Maybe it was a request, maybe it was something that was just put in there, it's a program you care about. I always encourage folks to be reaching out to their members, the members that represent them, and having conversations about these are the things that we care about. It's really important that this gets done. The dangers of a CR, and a lot of times the appropriators get hammered over the head by the DoD and by all these other entities saying, hey, continuing resolution really harms our ability to execute funding and keep these programs on time. But it is useful for constituent businesses to go to members who aren't appropriators and be like, hey, well, this matters to us too. We need these bills to become law in order for us to make revenue and get that capability into the warfighters' hands to like keep all this on track. Because the more it gets off track, the more money it costs, and you don't get more capability for that money when you're off track.
Right.
But that's kind of it. That's like that's the extent of where you can interact with this thing.
And perhaps I'm only throwing this in there because we've now done this for many cycles, but proactively meeting with the customer side in the department or in the service or whatever, the acquisition authority, indicating, hey, we're available to like help with follow through, or like,
sure,
we're aware of this or that. Like, is that level of communication, is that appropriate or no?
There's a little bit of a delicate dance there. So DoD folks, government employees are not allowed to lobby Congress. So they're not allowed to express to Congress any opinion aside from what is in the president's budget request. Right. Even if they, if I'm working at a program that I think is essential to national security, maybe I think it's more important than it is in the president's budget. So there is some opportunity there for businesses to be sort of a translator of sorts, sure, right? They can know what their customers' challenges and demands are, and they can communicate them to Congress without compromising government employees who are, held to that legal standard. So there's opportunity there, and it's the same thing. It's the same conversation, right?
Is that
businesses need to be interacting with their representatives to tell them why these things matter. And that's right. Both from like the funding needs to stay on the train tracks for X, Y, and Z reason. The programs that get funded by this money do X, Y, and Z for the military, for national security, for the wars that we are in or may be in. Like right. All of that is an opportunity to communicate what's happening on the ground.
On the department side, like the customer side, the buyer side, whatever, however you want to say it, every program executive office, as an example, has a legislative affairs person. Is that somebody that in that state, this straw man person that I'm referring to, might maintain or build a relationship with that person, that role? Is that appropriate or not appropriate? The reason I'm asking all this is because we have recently become aware of some entities that are out there who are inappropriately engaging either the acquisitions community or the congressional staff community, and either lobbying inappropriately or kind of bumbling around, all that stuff. So that's why I'm asking. So is that an appropriate use of
It's very
energy?
case by case, and not every PEO actually has a congressional affairs officer. Some folks are closer to the flagpole. Some folks have, problem sets that make a lot more sense and have like a higher degree of congressional engagement. So therefore they bring in that capability. Some of the combatant command, I think all the combatant commands now have them, which they didn't used to have. So this is very much like an evolving ecosystem of stuff. That one's hard to give blanket advice on.
Sure.
I always encourage folks in our space, hire somebody who knows this space. Get someone on your team who can speak Congress and knows what the left and rights are, because you really have an opportunity to be an advocate for your customers on the Hill, but you need to make sure you're doing it in that like appropriate way, that you're also not burning your customers at the same time.
Once upon a time, Simon encountered little old bumpkin Garrett from somewhere in Montana who didn't know what he was doing, and you straighten us out. So
you should also do it at least once without a lobbyist. Just go up there and see how it goes. Yeah, it's worth finding out what that place is like. Reach out to your reps, get a couple meetings. They'll take them. If you're from the home state, they'll take them.
I'll just say that was an education. Okay, last straw man, and then we'll wrap. What about, never engaged Congress before? We missed this cycle, right? Like the NDAA is baked, appropriations process is already played out. Like you're late to the ball game. What should somebody be thinking about for next cycle, or what are the ongoing kind of maintenance level things that somebody who hasn't done this, or an organization who is not familiar with how to do this, what should they be doing right now?
Fall is a great time to introduce yourself to your members of Congress.
Fall meaning after the end of the government fiscal year, September, October, what is it?
After the end of August, really, because the personal offices, the individual member offices, they spend that first 7 months of the year receiving requests. Yeah, and so that is like their busiest part of the season. It's requests for the authorizing bills and the appropriating bills. So when you come into fall, they usually have more time at that staff level to sit down with you and get to know you and talk about your stuff in preparation for, maybe I want to engage the cycle when spring comes back around for next year's cycle. So like I always tell folks, fall is when you need to be thinking about your Hill strategy and your engagement with your members.
Yeah, that has certainly been our experience, and like it's always better, to engage, whenever president's budget request drops in February, appropriations and authorization season opens. It's always better to have like a warm relationship there. Rather than
you never want your first meeting with somebody to come with an ask.
That's right.
You want to know the person on the other end of the line before you start asking them for stuff. That's for sure.
That's right. Okay, last word. Either you guys want the last word, or should I just hard wrap this thing?
We should have made Dave. We should have made Dave give the last word. I knew he was.
I saw the hand signal. All right, wrap. Garrett's talking too long, Dave said with his eyes. All right, guys. Awesome conversation. Thank you. Never a dull week in our space. Congrats again to Dan and the Firestorm team, and to the investors making important investments into that category. I'm excited about continued growth. We will see everybody next week. Give us a follow in the socials and podcast platforms of choice, and recommend us to your friends, and send comments. We want to continue having the conversations that make an impact on your side. So until then, adios.